I never thought I'd be one of those guys posting on some relationship advice forum, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Emily for about 6 years now. We met in college, and for the most part, our relationship seemed solid, at least on the surface. Emily was always the type to have a sharp tongue and a quick temper, but she was also charming when she wanted to be, and I thought I knew her well enough to handle her. We've built a pretty comfortable life together, working in our respective fields, me as an urban farm engineer, digging into sustainable food systems, especially water-efficient vertical farms. Emily's in marketing and she's always been a bit bitchy, always throwing little jabs that I let slide because I thought we had a good thing going. Lately, though, I'd started noticing some odd things, little shifts in her behavior. She'd be more secretive about her phone, always holding it tight when I'd walk into the room. The way she'd glance at her screen, quick to lock it when I got close. She'd also become more dismissive, snapping at me over small stuff like I was a bother rather than. Her husband. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe work stress or her period or just her usual bitchiness. But then I noticed her schedule changing. More late nights at work, or so she'd claim. But the thing was, she'd come home smelling different, more perfume, a strange scent I couldn't quite place. One night, I decided to do some snooping. Nothing invasive, just a quick glance at her phone when she went to the bathroom. I found messages, strange texts from someone named Jake, talking about water systems, making sure it's efficient, and meeting up later. My stomach sank. I kept reading and the messages got more personal, more flirty. They talked about rooftop gardens, irrigation systems, and some secret hangouts. It was weird. It sounded almost like a cover story for what was really going on, a clandestine meet during her food security project. I felt a cold sweat break out. How could she be lying so smoothly? I had this sinking feeling that Emily was cheating on me. I mean, I knew she was bitchy and manipulative, but I never thought she'd do something this low. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the evidence was staring right at me. I kept thinking about the way she'd been dressing differently lately, more provocative, more confident. That perfume I didn't recognize. Her dismissiveness was no longer just her being a bitch. It was her hiding something. And the biggest shock, I found out she'd been sneaking out on nights I thought she was working late, probably to meet Jake, her water efficiency guy, who, as it turns out, is her secret lover. The worst part was realizing how blindsided I'd been. I never suspected Emily could be capable of cheating, especially not with someone like Jake. Their water systems thing was just an excuse, a cover for their rooftop garden rendezvous during her food security initiative. I'd always thought her obsession with the farm and water efficiency was just her passion, her hobby. Now I saw it was also a cover for her secret life. I felt angry, betrayed, and honestly hurt, like I'd been played for a fool. I didn't sleep that night, just replaying everything I'd seen and trying to figure out my next move. I knew I couldn't let her get away with it, but I had to think carefully about what to do next. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was racing. My wife, Emily, the woman I loved and trusted, was cheating on me with some guy I'd never even heard of before. I kept going over the messages, the signs I'd missed, and the way she'd been acting lately. It all made sense now. The late nights, the secretive texts, the perfume. This wasn't just some fling. It was something she'd been hiding for weeks, maybe longer. I needed a plan, but I was also overwhelmed with so many conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. I didn't want to just blow up and yell at her without knowing what I was doing. But I also couldn't keep pretending nothing was wrong. I decided to play it cool for the moment. If I was going to confront her, I wanted to have all the facts straight. I started digging deeper into her phone, her social media accounts, trying to piece together her movements, her new habits, everything. I even checked the calendar she kept for her food security project. It was a mess, more late nights, more secret meetings. One thing I noticed was a pattern. She was often gone at night, but she'd claim she was working late or meeting clients. She'd be dismissive when I asked questions, brushing off my concerns with her usual snark. "Oh, Mike, you're just paranoid. It's just work. Relax." Yeah, right, I knew better now. I'd caught her in lies before, but this felt different. It was real. She was lying about her entire life, her real schedule, her real activities. That afternoon, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to confront her, but I knew I had to do it right. I waited until she got home from whatever she was doing. When she walked in, I was already sitting on the couch, calm but serious. Her face immediately twisted into that familiar smirk, that look that said she thought she could manipulate her way out of anything. "So, Emily," I said, voice even but firm, "we need to talk." Her eyes narrowed and she crossed her arms. "What are you talking about, Mike? I've been busy with work. Don't start accusing me of things." I pulled out the phone with the messages I'd saved, showing her the screenshots. "Who is Jake? And what's with the secret meetings?" Her face went pale for a second, then she scoffed. "That's nonsense, just some guy from work. You're reading too much into it." I didn't buy it. "Come on, Emily, I've seen the texts. You've been sneaking around, lying to me. I know you've been meeting him. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes darted around and she started lying again, saying she was just helping him with some water systems, that it was all innocent, that I was overreacting. But I wasn't buying that either. The way she said it, so defensive, made me realize she was lying even more. That bitchy glare she always threw when she was caught, yeah, she had it now. The confrontation turned stormy pretty fast. She yelled, called me paranoid, said I was just jealous, that I didn't trust her, typical. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I stared at her, feeling the heat of betrayal boiling inside. This woman I married, the one I'd built my life with, was out there fucking someone else, lying to my face, pretending everything was fine. I felt like I was losing my mind. I didn't even know who she was anymore. The worst part was knowing she'd been lying for weeks, maybe months. I thought about all the moments I'd brushed off, all the times I'd been oblivious. After she stormed out of the room, I just sat there, stunned. My mind kept racing. I'd never felt this kind of pain before, and honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I was furious, but I also felt broken, like my entire world had shattered. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind. I wondered if I should just pack my bags and leave right then, or try to get some answers, some closure. But deep down, I knew the truth. She'd been cheating on me for a while, and I had to decide if I wanted to fight for this marriage or walk away. The emotional toll was draining, and I didn't know how to process all of it. I only knew one thing: this wasn't going to be easy. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the confrontation, the way Emily had looked when I showed her the texts, her sneering denial. I was furious but also hurt, more than I'd ever felt before. How could she do this to us? I kept asking myself if I'd missed all the signs, if I'd been blind to her lies all along. The betrayal cut deep, and I realized that I needed to think carefully about what to do next. I couldn't just react emotionally. I had to come up with a plan, a way to get some answers, and maybe, if I was lucky, a way to punish her for what she'd done. The next morning, I decided to investigate further. I needed to know exactly how long this had been going on, how deep it went, and what Jake's role really was. I started by watching her routines more closely. She left early, came back late, and always seemed too casual about her excuses. I also looked into Jake, the water efficiency engineer. It turned out he was real enough, working with urban vertical farms and rooftop garden systems. His job was to optimize irrigation and water use, but I had my suspicions. I remembered how Emily always had a fascination with rooftop gardens and water systems. It was like her secret obsession. Maybe even her gateway to Jake. I decided I needed to see where she was meeting him. I told a small lie, saying I had to pick something up from work and wanted to surprise her. Instead, I followed her from a distance. She drove to an industrial-looking area on the outskirts of town, to a building that looked like it belonged to some urban farming startup. She got out and went inside, looking around nervously. I kept my distance, watching her go in through a side door. That was my proof. Emily wasn't just working late. She was meeting him in some kind of clandestine way. I felt a storm of emotions, rage, betrayal, and helplessness. But I also knew I had to be smart about this. I couldn't just barge in and accuse her. I needed evidence. I decided to set up a hidden camera outside, get some footage of her and Jake together. I ordered the camera online, knowing I'd need conclusive proof before making any final moves. That night I installed it covertly near the building, making sure it was pointed at the entrance. I felt like a sleuth in some bad crime drama, but I also knew that if I didn't do this, I'd never really know how deep her lies went. Over the next few days, I watched the footage. Sure enough, Emily was meeting Jake regularly. Sometimes it was just a quick handshake, but other times they were together for hours in what looked like intimate conversations. I saw her laughing, touching his arm, acting like they were more than just business associates. I kept thinking about the rooftop garden encounters, the secret nights, how the water efficiency projects during the day were just a cover for her secret life. It was all so clear now. She'd been deceiving me right under my nose, using her work as an alibi for her infidelity. At this point, I was boiling with rage. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, betrayed by the woman I thought I knew. I promised myself I wouldn't lose it, but inside I was losing control. The plan was starting to form. I'd gather everything I needed, proof, evidence, and then confront her again, but this time with leverage. I wasn't just going to yell and threaten. I wanted her to know I had her cornered, that I was one step ahead. I realized I needed to be strategic, cold even, if I was going to get any real resolution out of this mess. I could feel the anger building in me, but I also knew I had to keep my emotions in check for what was coming next. The more I watched that footage, the clearer it became how deep her betrayal went. Emily thought she was so clever, meeting Jake during the late hours, acting like she was just doing her water efficiency job. But I knew better now. She was using her work as a cover, and honestly, it made me feel sick to my stomach. I kept revisiting all the little signs I'd missed, how her attitude changed, the perfume, the secretive texts. It all added up to one thing: she'd been lying to me for months. I also started thinking about what I was going to do with this evidence. I had to be careful. I didn't want to come off as some crazy husband who just accused his wife without proof. But I also couldn't let her continue this charade. I needed to confront her, but I wanted to do it on my terms, with a clear head. I decided I'd hold onto the footage and some of the messages, and if I was going to face her again, it would be with everything laid out in front of her. One afternoon, I finally decided to talk to her again. I told her I had something important to discuss, but I didn't give her details up front. When she got home, she was her usual bitchy self, snapping at me, dismissive, throwing around insults. I kept my cool, letting her ramble. Then I showed her the evidence, screenshots of her texts with Jake, the footage of her coming out of that building, her secret meetings. Her face went white. She blinked rapidly, trying to deny it all, but I kept pressing. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded. She started lying again, saying it was just some professional collaboration, that I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat on me. Yeah, right. I told her I wasn't stupid, that I had proof, and she could lie all she wanted, but I knew the truth. Her bitchy mask cracked, and for the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. She started crying, saying she did mean for it to go this far, that Jake was just some stupid fling, and that she was sorry. Sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it when she's been sneaking out, lying to my face, and cheating on me for months. I felt a million different things at once: anger boiling over, heartbreak, confusion. I wanted to scream, to shake her and tell her I deserved better. But I also realized that I couldn't just lose my mind. I had to stay composed. I told her this wasn't just about cheating. It was about respect, honesty, and trust, things she had completely destroyed. I told her I needed some time to think and that I wasn't sure what my next move was going to be. I was hurt, but I also knew I had to decide whether I could forgive her or if this was the end of us. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling emptier than I ever had before. The betrayal was raw, and I kept replaying everything: her lies, her sneers, her secret rendezvous. I wondered how I'd ever trusted her, how I'd let her manipulate me for so long. The worst part, knowing I'd never see her the same way again. I'd always wonder what was real, what was fake. And as much as I wanted to punish her, part of me just felt broken, like I'd lost the woman I thought I knew. I didn't even know how I was going to sleep after all this. All I knew was that I was not going to let her walk all over me anymore. I was done being the naive husband. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I stayed silent most of the time, just watching Emily, trying to gauge her reactions, her next move. Part of me wanted to blow everything up right then and there, but another part knew I had to be strategic. I kept the footage and all the proof hidden, waiting for the right moment. I needed her to realize I wasn't going to be played anymore. I also started thinking about what I really wanted, whether I wanted to save the marriage or just end it and move on. She noticed my change in attitude, of course. I could see it in her bitchy smirk, her defensive attitude whenever I brought up her lies. Now she was trying to manipulate the situation, playing the victim, crying about how she didn't mean for it to get this bad, how it was just a stupid mistake. But I wasn't buying any of her bullshit anymore. I knew her, and I knew she was good at hiding her true self. That's how she always was, lying, twisting things around, trying to make herself look innocent. Now, her mask was slipping, and she was starting to realize I saw through her. One evening she came home late again, smelling like that damn perfume and looking more agitated than usual. I was sitting in the living room, pretending to be chill, but inside I was fuming. She tried to brush past me, but I stopped her. "Emily," I said, cold and steady, "we need to talk again." She rolled her eyes and snapped, "What now? I've already told you everything. Just leave me alone." But I wasn't going to let her dismiss me so easily. I pulled out the phone with the videos again just so she'd see I was serious. "You think you can keep lying, Emily? I've got more than enough proof now. You're cheating on me, meeting Jake behind my back, using your work as an excuse. How long has this been going on?" Her face flamed red and she finally snapped. "So what? It doesn't mean anything, it's just sex. It's not like I love him or anything, he's just some stupid guy I met through work. It's not your business." That hit me like a punch to the gut. She was trying to minimize it, make herself sound like some innocent victim, but I knew better. Her lies were so transparent. I told her I didn't care about her stupid excuses anymore. I'd caught her red-handed and this was over. She kept insisting she was sorry, crying, throwing some tantrum about how I was so controlling, so jealous. But I felt nothing but disgust. I told her she'd lost my trust and I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. That night she stayed in the guest room, sobbing, still trying to justify her actions. I lay awake, feeling the weight of everything, the betrayal, the anger, the heartbreak. I had to decide what I was going to do. Part of me wanted to tear everything apart and leave her. Part of me wondered if I could somehow fix this mess. The truth was, I felt broken, betrayed by the woman I'd loved for so long. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, and now I was faced with the harsh reality that she'd shattered both. The worst part, knowing I'd never see her the same way again, and questioning whether I could ever rebuild what we once had. I knew I had to be patient, but inside I was already planning my next move. The days turned into weeks, and I found myself caught in a strange limbo. Every time I looked at Emily, I saw the woman I thought I knew, but beneath that surface was a stranger, someone capable of lying, cheating, and hiding a whole secret life from me. I stayed silent at first, trying to process everything, to decide what I truly wanted. I knew I couldn't keep living like this, living in the shadow of her betrayal. But I also couldn't ignore the fact that I still loved her. Conflicted love, yes, but love nonetheless. Eventually, I made my decision. I told her I needed time to think about whether we could salvage this, but deep down, I knew that trust was broken beyond repair. The betrayal had cut too deep. I sat her down, looking her straight in the eyes, and told her I was leaving. Not immediately, but soon. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Every glance, every word from her felt like a knife in my back. I explained I wasn't angry because she cheated, though I was, but because she'd lied and manipulated me for so long. That she'd used her work as a cover, a way to betray not just our relationship but the very foundation of trust that held us together. She begged, of course. Tried to guilt me, accused me of being controlling, jealous, insecure. She called me paranoid, said I was overreacting, that it was just sex, just a stupid mistake. But I knew better now. I knew this wasn't just about sex. It was about her choosing to lie, to hide her true self, to betray everything we'd built. I told her I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore, that I was done. that I deserved better than a wife who used the guise of her work to sneak around and cheat. The final day I walked out, she was crying, really crying, pleading for me to stay, saying she'd change, that she'd stop seeing Jake, that she loved me, but I'd heard enough. Love without trust isn't love at all. It's a lie. I felt nothing but a mixture of relief and heartbreak as I grabbed my bag and left her standing there. I knew it was the end. Now I reflect on everything. I learned that people can hide who they really are behind a facade, even those closest to us. I learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. But I also learned that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect, things I was willing to fight for, but only if they're genuine. My advice to anyone reading this: don't ignore the signs. Don't justify the lies or dismiss the small red flags. When trust is broken, it's like a house with a cracked foundation. It might stand temporarily, but eventually it collapses. Protect yourself. Cherish honesty. And remember, sometimes walking away is the only way to truly find peace.